in 1999, after Batman the Animated Series ended, things got a little bit more creative when it came to the character and what they were going to do next with him. They introduced a new Batman in 2000's Batman Beyond with Terry McGinnis. However, we still do see Bruce Wayne kind of helping him out. That cartoon series gained popularity, and just a couple years later, the debut of the Justice League series would take place, and even a couple years after that, another Batman standalone series titled The Batman would make its debut on Cartoon Network and last up until 2007. But there was one small thing in 2000 that the DC Universe, Warner Brothers, decided to do that was different from all these projects, whereas all these shows were shown on the small screen and they started doing some other, straight to DVD movies like Batman, The Mystery of Batwoman, and of course Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. There was a show called Gotham Girls that lasted 3 seasons, all throughout 2000. These 30 episodes were released, 3 10-episode seasons, but it wasn't a TV show. It was something that we have not really seen often, and this was something that back in my childhood you would see a lot of, but nowadays you're probably not going to see it at all. This was a web series. What is a web series? Well, we still have those, but this is what we like to call an interactive web series, where you're technically watching a short episode of the show, but there's also moments where you can interact. You can choose what happens, this, that, and the other. It's kind of like those Telltale series games that come out now, and they were interesting. The first couple of seasons, they were just short episodes. They really didn't play off each other. It was just kind of funny. The main characters, at least the 4 that we see the most, are Batgirl, obviously, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and Catwoman. Now, this is kind of like an early rendition of Gotham City Sirens, as I think this was before that comic was created. So it kind of makes sense that those 4 would be the main people that we see, because at that time, I think they were the most popular female characters when it came to Batman the Animated Series. And what was weird about this, too, was all the actresses that voiced the characters in the animated series returned for their roles in this thing specifically, so it still felt fresh to people. Like, we knew who they were, we knew we were going to get good performances. It was very low quality stuff, as you would expect from an internet web series in 2000, and, it was fun for a while, but I guess the popularity after season 2 was kind of going down. People weren't as interested in it. So when season 3 came, things changed a bit. You're probably wondering how I watch these episodes, considering the web series is long gone. All 30 episodes are uploaded to YouTube, and it's pretty quick to watch, like I said. I think you don't get an episode over 6 minutes. They go by fairly quick. Some of them are under 2 minutes. They're just funny little, stories. But season 3, it had a plot and a story that confused the hell out of you. They were wondering where all the men went in Gotham City, because one day, when Poison Ivy's taking Harley Quinn to see the Joker, they go to the Arkham grounds, where they see that all the men, even the male cops, have just straight up disappeared, and they're trying to figure out what happened to them. Well, it turns out that Mr. Freeze's freeze ray has this reverse effect that takes all the men away, but, it can't be Mr. Freeze. He's a man, and he's gone, and why would he, do this to himself? So it leads you to believe who's doing this, and of course Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy get framed. The new commissioner, the female commissioner, doesn't want Batgirl around because she sees her like other cops other than Commissioner Gordon would see Batman, just a vigilante doing a cop's work. So she kind of has to lay low and be careful because now the police are after her as well. And it becomes this whole weird thing, and then once they find out that the freeze ray has a reverse effect to bring the men back, when all the Gotham City police officers are back, they get violent.
Okay, we give. I said we give!
Or at least they have violent tendencies. This is made for kids, so you're not going to see anything completely out of whack here, but like Commissioner Gordon's policy then becomes shoot to kill at all costs, like no matter what, because he truly thinks that not only has Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn done this, but Batgirl as well, and Catwoman's, still out doing her thing, as they believe before all this went down when the cops came back. When they were gone, everybody thought that she was the one that kidnapped the mayor. They get thrown into Arkham, and come to find out, with a twist, that it was someone that Mr. Freeze knew. I'm not going to tell you who it was.
I'm a rat! I ain't no snitch!
But it takes a twist, and they end the series on just this weird 10-part series where they try to turn this into just like, I don't know, it just seemed like I was watching a full-length episode cut down into 10 parts, and I think, like I said, the reason they did that was because it seemed like the interest in the web series after season 2 just kind of collapsed a bit. As like I said, the first 2 seasons were just these short little adventures, whether it was Catwoman doing something, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, or other characters that were involved. It just seemed like people stopped really tuning into it, and then season 3, they wanted to put this story around it so that people would keep tuning in until the end to see what happens. And then after that, it never came back again. It lasted for this 1 year, the 30 episodes that it was out, and I guess it lasted online for a little bit, but like I said, the servers for most of these older web series and stuff are down, so you're not going to be able to find it anywhere, say, on a website, but, like I said, YouTube, someone has them all downloaded. I don't know how, as far as I'm concerned. There was no, DVD release or VHS release of these episodes, so somebody must have had files from a long time ago saved, just in case something like this happened, I guess. And my final thing about this series is, I think, for what it was, it seemed fun. It had good intentions. Like I said, it was more made for the, smaller audience. By smaller, I mean, the kids. Like, it wasn't dark or anything like the animated series was. It was trying to, I guess, appeal to the crowd because of the Batman Beyond series and probably what they had planned after that, since, a lot of the other shows after the animated series became more family-friendly in nature. I mean, the Batman had its dark moments, but it wasn't necessarily, fully dark to a point where you wouldn't let your kids watch it, and I think this was just a tactic to kind of help tease all that and to get people excited for things to come in the DC animated universe, which, if there's one thing we can say, DC does very good with shows, even live action shows. They struggle with movies, but when it comes to shows, they do really good, and I think it's gotten people to kind of, when a DC announces they're making a new show, it gets people excited because they know they're going to be entertained in some way. I mean, again, they have their flops, but Marvel's TV shows compared to DC's TV shows, I couldn't name really a successful Marvel show that was around for a long time other than maybe the Spider-Man animated series and X-Men. DC just had so many good cartoon shows that in a way they were trying to find a way to rev things up. Plus, two, a couple years later, Static Shock, who is in the DC universe, because Batman, Superman, the Joker, all them make appearances multiple times in the show, came out as well, so they were probably getting people excited for that, a lesser-known hero at this point in time. It just goes to show you what people would do back then to promote things other than, oh, here's a trailer or here's this, that, and the other, because there wasn't social media back then. People would get out there and promote their stuff by making their own website, putting stuff online and doing stuff like this, that now, since we have all this other piece of technology and other social media apps, we don't really find the need to do that anymore. There are still musicians and stuff I see that'll make a new website to create this mystery and tease new music, but for the most part, that's basically all you're gonna get. You're not gonna get some interactive computer game that is also a web series of short cartoons. It doesn't happen anymore, but it was an intriguing trip down memory lane, because I do remember this, even though I was young, I still do remember this at first being this is interesting, but at the same point in time I look back at it and go, it's one of the weirder things DC has done to be hey, we got new projects coming, here's this, but kudos to the original voice actresses for coming back and doing this, because, again, this, most of the time now, you wouldn't see someone who's coming off a big show like that, doing something as little and as dumb as most people would call it, they would be like, I'm not doing this, get somebody else to do it. But they did it, and that was another thing. Most of the time back then, when you had voice actors for a character, you wanted them to play that character every single time you had something animated going on. But now, you see it a lot with this animated stuff, they flip-flop voice actors for a lot of things. You'll see original ones come back every so often, but they're not like the go-to anymore, like Kevin Conroy was for Batman back then, or Mark Hamill was for the Joker, or Arlene Sorkin was for Harley Quinn. It just, you had to have those same voice actors, or else people may not have been interested in it. Now, Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy don't appear in the series. The only really men that get any talk time in the series are Commissioner Gordon and a couple of the other like short one-off like you see for like a couple second characters. But you know, people still wanted to hear the actresses that voiced the characters beforehand, and that's exactly what they got with the series. And again, I think it was just a fun little thing that DC wanted to try out, and they just so happened to do it, not necessarily at the tail end of all that, but it was something that around 2000, a lot of things would change on the internet. Facebook, MySpace would become a thing, and of course YouTube was born, and people were just finding more innovative ways to promote whatever they were doing at that time. So you can say this was the last, to me, truly like interactive web series slash game in a way that really tried to be something and tried to entertain more than just, oh, this is a game, or oh, this is a web series. It was both, and it's obscure, but some people might look back at it and go, I remember this, and it's fun. It really is fun for some people. So that's it for me. You guys can tell me in the comments below, what do you think? Do you remember this web series at all? Or are you just too young to even remember that this even existed? And I'm just letting you know now, like you were today years old when you figured out this existed. But yeah, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and until then, I will catch you all in the next one.
We got lots of cash. We got so much cash. We're just barfing cash.
Harley?
You say something, Red?